The night it happened, I smelled burnt coffee and rain. My life had shrunk to a six-table corner in a half-empty diner where I took orders with a smile I couldn't afford to lose. After my business collapsed, I wore starch and apologies for a living. That's when he walked in, immaculate suit, oxygen-thin voice, eyes like a lighthouse through fog. "You remind me of someone I lost," he said after I kept refilling his tea and pretending not to notice his trembling hands. The check holder was heavier than it should have been. Inside, his card and a tip so obscene I thought it was a misprint. $70,000. I didn't sleep. The next morning, a lawyer called. "He died last night," she said. "But he changed his will because of you." I went to hear the good news and left with a truth that ripped my heart open. $2 billion and a reason I'd spend years trying to forgive. I used to sign vendor contracts with a fountain pen my dad gave me. The day the last one evaporated, I pawned the pen for rent. After my boutique catering company imploded, 3 late invoices, 1 greedy landlord, and a storm that flooded our kitchen, my life reassembled itself in fluorescent lighting. My name is Claire Moore, 29, waitress at Riverside Diner off Highway 41. The diner had a neon sign that flickered open like it needed CPR. The regulars, truckers, graveyard nurses, men who wore their loneliness like a jacket, paid in cash and stories. I paid in smiles and no worries. Table 3 wants the meatloaf, sweetheart, called Darla, the head waitress, a woman with lacquered hair and a moral code of steel. And Claire, drink some water. You're pale as chalk. I was pale because the math wouldn't lie. Tips covered my mother's medication and a storage unit holding the last stainless steel table from Claire and Company. Catering. I kept thinking I could resurrect the company if I just kept the table, as if steel could carry hope. I wore my failure quietly. Jason, my ex, had left when I said I wouldn't borrow from his crypto pile to relaunch. My best friend Avery, my younger sister, texted me dog videos and job listings. And "you're not your balance," inspirational quotes. Mom Linda pretended not to notice the nights I brought leftovers. The night the billionaire found me. Rain strafed the windows. I moved like a metronome. Coffee pot, order pad, smile. Repeat. When the bell above the door tinkled, Darla looked up and muttered, "Wrong neighborhood." He looked like money that didn't need to brag. Charcoal coat, cufflinks, a pocket square folded like origami. But it was his hands that arrested me, steady on the surface, trembling if you stared long enough. He took booth 5, the one beneath the buzzing sign. I poured him hot water and dropped a tea bag like ritual. "Do you serve Earl Grey?" he asked. "We serve hot and wet," I said. "But I can pretend." He laughed, surprised, grateful, tired. "I'm Ethan Whitmore," he added, as if I might recognize the name. I didn't. I only recognized the look of someone who'd come for warmth and found witness. "You remind me of someone I lost," he said. And I swear the air inside the diner leaned in to listen. He ate like a man who had learned to make peace with small portions, poached eggs, dry toast, tea. He asked questions no customer asked. "How did you land here? What would you rebuild if you could?" His voice made everything sound like a confession. "I ran a catering company," I said. "Lost it. Now I carry plates." "People don't eat plates," he said gently. "They eat what you carry to them, the celebration." I refilled his tea. "Who did you lose?" "My son," he answered, looking at the steam and the life that would have come with him. Silence pulled between us. He paid the bill with a black card and slipped his business card into the check holder. When I lifted it, my hand almost dropped the leather. A cashier's check for $70,000 nestled there, crisp and surreal. "I can't take this," I whispered. "You can," he said, not unkind. "Call it payment for good tea and better listening. Promise me one thing, Miss Moore. Use it for something alive." My mouth moved before my doubt did. "I promise." He covered my hand with his. His skin was cool. "You remind me," he said, "of the girl my son loved." She laughed at my expensive teacups and called them tiny soup bowls. "You laughed at my tea. Where is she now?" I asked. "Gone," he said. "Gone in a way that leaves a room still warm." Darla watched from the pass with an expression I'd only seen once, when her daughter made it into nursing school. He left in the rain. I stood with the check under the heat lamp, like it might melt. When the bell tinkled again, he was already a ghost in the parking lot. "Who is that?" Darla asked. "Ethan," I said. "A man who tips like he knows time is alone." I didn't cash the check that night. I folded it into my apron and walked home with the rain baptizing my cheap shoes. Sleep wouldn't come. Numbers danced. At 8:13 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Miss Moore, this is Harper Quinn, counsel to Mr. Ethan Whitmore. I'm afraid I have difficult news. He died last night." The sentence emptied a space inside me I didn't know I had. He was at the diner. I gripped the counter. Darla studied my elbow. "Mr. Whitmore asked to amend his estate plan late yesterday. He named you," the lawyer said. She spoke like every word was evidence. "Would you come to our office at 11 o'clock? I borrowed Darla's car. Downtown looked stainless and unsentimental. Whitmore, Quinn, and Pike occupied an entire floor in a building made of reflections. I took an elevator that didn't apologize for its speed. Claire Moore. A woman with a pin that read Harper Quinn guided me to a conference room upholstered in leather and hush. Across the table, a man in a navy suit, Randall Pike, whose smile suggested he'd read every loophole. Harper slid a thick envelope toward me. "Mr. Whitmore executed a codicil at 6:41 p.m. last night, effective upon death. He left the bulk of his estate, valued for probate at approximately $2 billion to you." The room tipped. I grabbed the armrest. "This is a mistake." Mr. Whitmore was competent. "We have video," Harper said. He also left a letter. Randall cleared his throat. "Miss Moore, while we recognize the decedent's wishes, there are board considerations. Whitmore Holdings has shareholders, philanthropic obligations. A waitress inheriting a controlling stake is complicated." A waitress. The word lodged between my ribs. Harper's look sliced him quiet. "We honor the will." She opened the letter and began to read. "Claire, I met you far too late. If you're hearing this, I've kept a promise to a version of myself who still believed in mercy. Once my son loved a girl who laughed like you. Once I made that girl feel small. Then I lost them both, one to death, one to the kind of vanishing grief demands. You remind me of the life I could have had if I had forgiven faster." Tears pricked hot. "Why me?" I asked. Harper's eyes softened. "There's one more paragraph." Randall looked away, suddenly fascinated by the skyline. "Mr. Whitmore asked me to read the rest privately," Harper said. "If you'd prefer, read it," I whispered. "All of it," she nodded, found the line, and exhaled. "This is the reason, Claire. I learned yesterday that the hit and run that killed my son 32 years ago, the one that snuffed out the family I might have had, involved your mother. She was young. She panicked. She was not alone. She lived with it. I could not forgive the driver. I will try to forgive the child." The words split the room. My heart followed. "No." It left my mouth before the thought formed. "No, that's impossible." Harper slid me tissues with the precision of someone who'd mapped grief. "There's more context," she said quietly. "Police report references a vintage blue Camaro. The driver fled. A second passenger coerced her. The case went cold after a local councilman intervened. Mr. Whitmore's investigator tied the vehicle to your mother's then boyfriend, Daryl Keene. Your mother, Linda Moore, was 19. My mother at 19 was a girl in Polaroids, hair in a scarf, eyes like summer. I saw her hands wrapping my childhood lunches, stifling coughs in winter, counting change in the grocery line." Randall cleared his throat oily again. "For the record, the statute." Harper's glance cut him. "Not the time. Is Mom going to prison?" I asked uselessly. "Criminal exposure after this long is unlikely without new evidence," Harper said. "Mr. Whitmore didn't seek charges. He sought an end." The rest of the letter, ink steady, pain formal. "If you accept the estate, you accept the conditions. Establish the Whitmore Second Chances Trust with a minimum of $1.5 billion to support victims of preventable tragedies and to fund driver education, addiction treatment, and restorative justice. You must tell the truth to your mother and to me by letter if I am gone. Release my family from vengeance. Release yours from secrecy." I stared at the skyline. Cars streaked below like seconds. Miss Moore, Harper said softer. We can contest or we can carry out his dying wish. What if I say no? Then the bulk passes to a list of charities. You'll inherit a smaller trust for education grants. Mr. Whitmore anticipated your refusal. I left the firm with the city too bright. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still remembered it. I dialed Avery first. Claire, you okay? You sound, where's Mom? At home. Why? I'm coming over. I hung up before the truth could make me a coward. When I opened our apartment door, Mom was stitching the shoulder seam of my thrift store blazer like it had offended her. She looked up, smiled that automatic mom smile, then froze. What is it? She asked, already bracing. Saturday. The chair squeaked like it wanted out. Mom, I said, who is Daryl Keene? Her hand went slack. The needle fell. Why that name? She managed. Because a man died last night, I said, and left me $2 billion to teach us how to tell the truth. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she wasn't my mother. She was a 19-year-old girl again, trapped in a night with a blue Camaro and a boy who drove too fast on borrowed bravado. Tell me, I whispered. Please. She did. We were kids, Mom began. Daryl had a car and a mean laugh. He drank like it was a costume he could wear to look like a man. I told him not to drive. He told me to shut up. It was raining. He cut a corner. There was a light, white, sudden, a motorcycle. He swerved. The bike went down. Her breath shredded. We kept going. Kept going. My voice cracked on the word. I said to turn around. He said my future would end if we did. He said his uncle knew a councilman. He said we'd be safe if we just kept going. You hit someone and didn't stop, I said, tasting metal. We didn't know if she stopped. We knew. A mile later. We knew the news that night. Michael Whitmore, heir apparent, dead in a hit and run. Daryl broke his hand punching the wall. I cleaned the blood. He threatened to tell the police I was driving. Were you? No, but I was in the car. Claire, I was there. I was the kind of coward you become when you're 19 and scared and stupid. I left Daryl a month later. I found out I was pregnant with you. The room found a new angle. You hid this from me my whole life. I hid it from myself, Mom said. I built a new person out of work and apologies I never said out loud. I married your father. I never drove at night again. Every motorcycle made me sick. Ethan, Mr. Whitmore, knew yesterday, I told her. He found your name. He wrote me a letter. He forgave me by proxy. Tears shook free. She reached for me. I flinched. Her hand hovered like a moth denied a light. I will turn myself in. If that's what you want, she whispered. I will tell the police everything. I don't want a courtroom, I said, voice raw. I want the truth to stop standing between us and everything else. The door flew open. Avery barreled in, hair wet from the sprint. Okay, what is happening? Because I can feel it in the hallway. I told her. She listened in segments, eyes on me, then Mom, then the wall, like it might produce mercy. When I finished, she let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. So, we're poor, then rich, then radioactive, she said, wiping her face. Classic Moore family plot twist. Ethan left conditions, I said. A fund, restorative justice, public truth. Mom nodded, grateful for something she could do. I'll meet his lawyer. I'll write to his family. I'll sign whatever makes this less monstrous. Avery folded her arms. What about the vultures? She asked. What vultures? Anyone who smells money, she said. Jason already texted, by the way. Heard a rumor. Coffee? She rolled her eyes so hard I heard it. As if summoned, my phone rang. Harper. Claire. A reporter called the office. Someone leaked the codicil. You'll have cameras by morning. Who leaked it? I asked, already guessing. Hard to say, she replied. But Mr. Randall Pike has very firm ideas about fiduciary duty and about you. Let him have ideas, I said. I have a letter. Mom slid the mended blazer onto my shoulders like armor. If we're going to be honest, she said, we do it properly. I'll stand next to you. For the record, Avery said, grabbing her car keys like a sword. We're doing hair and makeup. Truth looks better when it doesn't look like it cried all night. We laughed, three women rearranging a life around a new shape of pain and a new shape of hope. The next morning, the diner had three news vans and a man who pretended to be a customer while live tweeting my coffee refills. Darla posted a handwritten sign, "No media, eat or leave." The internet did both. Harper arranged a press statement at the Whitmore Foundation Hall. She dressed in gray. I dressed in courage. Mom wore the thrift store blazer she'd once saved from ruin. Inside, the board waited, 5 strangers with pedigrees for middle names and Randall Pike, Whitmore Holdings CFO, whose tie alone could fund a semester of community college. "Miss Moore," he began before I'd sat. "On behalf of our shareholders, let me express condolences. Also concern. The market dislikes uncertainty. You represent a variable. Grief does that," I said. "So does honesty." He slid a folder forward. "A proposal. You relinquish control of Whitmore Holdings to the board. In return, we endow your Second Chances Trust with, say, $200 million. A generous settlement. Cleaner for all. The will requires $1.5 billion, Harper said. Not a negotiation." Randall's smile didn't change. "Courts are interpretive. Optics matter. A waitress inheriting billions from a man she served tea, that's a story with edges. The board can soften them." "And the truth?" I asked. He blinked. "Truth is a luxury when markets are open." I stood. "Then consider this a hostile act," I said, surprising even myself. "By me, against silence." Harper's mouth tugged with the smallest approval. "We'll be proceeding as written." Randall's eyes cooled. "Good luck with the storm, Miss Moore." We walked to the podium through a corridor of cameras. Flashbulbs invented lightning where none existed. I read the letter, not the parts about money, the parts about mercy. "Don't let money be your monument," Ethan wrote. "Let it be the bridge back to the people you love." I told the truth about the car, the rain, the 19-year-old who couldn't find the brakes on shame. I said we would meet victims, fund therapy, underwrite defensive driving, build scholarships in Michael Whitmore's name. Questions flew like thrown cutlery. "Are you a gold digger?" "No." "Is your mother a murderer?" "She is a human being who will spend the rest of her life making amends." "Will you sell the company?" "I will run the trust." "The board will run what they already run with oversight," I said, nodding toward a camera as if it were a person who mattered. After, in the hallway, a woman stopped me, gray hair, kind mouth, a tremor in her voice. "I'm Grace Park," she said. Michael and I were close once." "Thank you for saying his name." I took her hands. "Help me build this right," I said. She squeezed back. "I will." Randall watched from a distance, calculating, the way men do when the math finally includes a variable they can't price. The memorial filled the hall to the exit signs. Employees in black, politicians in blue, family in absence. On stage, a frame with Michael Whitmore's smile and a motorcycle helmet polished like a prayer. Harper stood at the lectern. "Per Mr. Whitmore's wishes, Miss Claire Moore will speak." I walked like a person who'd been handed a life too big for her pockets. 32 years ago, I began. A terrible thing happened in the rain. It stole a son and scattered a future. I can't return what was taken, but I can tell you what I will do with what was given. I told them about the Whitmore Second Chances Trust, $1.5 billion minimum, independent board with victims represented, Grace Park as co-chair, scholarships for first responders, therapy grants, driver training. A restorative justice program where offenders face those they harmed if the harmed consent. Randall stepped up to a second microphone. "Shareholders have a right to know whether Miss Moore intends to destabilize." "I intend to humanize," I said, turning to him. "Profit without conscience is a vandalism of meaning. I won't be party to it." A murmur, a living thing, moved through the crowd. From the second row, a man in his 50s stood. "I lost my wife in a hit and run," he said, voice steady. "If this fund means fewer of us stand up to say that, then I don't care who inherited what." Randall recalculated. And Saturday, Harper handed me a small envelope, Ethan's final note, sealed for the memorial. "Claire, if the room is full, some came for me and some came to see if you'd fail. Remember this. The thing you carry is not money. It's permission for people to forgive themselves, for truth to walk in daylight, for grief to make something that wasn't there before. When my son died, I could not forgive. I thought forgiveness would make the loss smaller. I was wrong. Forgiveness makes you larger. That's all it does. I read it aloud. By the end, the room had new weather. After the program, I found a quiet corner and dialed a number I'd been afraid of. Daryl Keene, or what passed for him now. He lived 2 towns over, a voice that had marinated in cheap beer and old lies. Claire Moore, he said, like a bad memory finding shoes. Heard you're rich. I'm funded, I corrected, by a man your choices helped bury. I'm opening a restorative trek. If you're capable of truth, you can speak it there on record, to the people who deserve to hear it. He laughed, ugly. Statutes run out, sweetheart. Truth's for suckers. Not anymore, I said, and hung up. Some doors you close so the house can be a home. Backstage, Mom stood with Grace. They were crying and not hiding it. I walked to them and put an arm around each. I don't know if I deserve this, I said. Deserve is a past tense verb, Grace replied. Build is present tense. Mom touched my cheek. I don't know how to live with what I did, she said. You live by doing, I told her, every day, something that makes the world look a little less like that night. She nodded. Then let's start tonight. We signed the documents in a room that smelled like cedar and closure. The Whitmore Second Chances Trust launched with $1.6 billion. We added more later. Grace's name went on the letterhead. Then Mom's in small print because penance doesn't headline. Randall found a way to make peace with regulation. Apparently, ethics improves price to earnings once investors believe it's permanent. I kept my apartment. I kept my storage unit, too, but only long enough to donate the steel table to a community kitchen named Michael's Place, where teens learned to cook and learned that sharp knives are only as dangerous as the hands that wield them. I still work a shift a week at the diner. Darla refuses to let me pay for coffee. You make me rich in novelty, she jokes, sliding me pancakes like absolution. One Thursday, a woman came in with her apron folded like a truce flag. She'd lost a bakery when her landlord raised the rent and her oven died on the same day. She cried into her tea. I listened. When she left, I pressed a card into her palm. Whitmore Second Chances printed in letters that didn't shout. Call this number, I said. They're good people. On my way out, the rain started gentle, as if the sky had learned to speak softly. I looked up and thought of Ethan. I couldn't return his son. I couldn't rewind a 19-year-old girl's terror. But I could refuse to let money be a monument. I could insist it be a bridge. Avery sent a photo later. Mom, at a community center, teaching a safe driving class. Her hands calm, her voice steady. Underneath, my sister wrote, "Building is present tense." In my wallet, next to a receipt for tea and a picture of me and Avery at the lake, I keep Ethan's letter. The crease is worn. The ink hasn't faded. Forgiveness hasn't made the loss smaller. It has made us larger. Big enough to carry the weight properly. Big enough to give it.